its introduction, Remembering Gay Latino Studies. In the 1980s, the Chicana feminist Gloria Anzaldúa made room in her groundbreaking lesbian feminist Borderlands La Frontera for a brief but poignant consideration of gay Chicano men. In doing so, she not only expressed grief over the isolation imposed on gay Latinos by a certain kind of lesbian separatist politics, but she also associated the cultivation of some sharp and police divisions with personal and political loss. She wrote, "It is astonishing to think we've stayed in the dark hole where the world entraps lesbians. It is astonishing to think that we, as feminists and lesbians, have closed our hearts to the men, to our queer brothers, disinherited and marginal like us." Understanding Anzaldúa's statement to be a courageous assertion of feminist solidarity and assertion of mutual recognition and responsibility, we come closer to appreciating why a volume like Gay Latino Studies, dedicated as it is to cultivating a dialogic context for gay male Latino intellectual production, begins with its invocation, why perhaps it even finds comfort in it. As the editors of this volume, we are not interested in imputing responsibility to feminists for any isolation that Jotos and other gay Latinos have experienced. The history of that isolation and the divisions that have existed between gay Latinos and Latina lesbians when they have existed is surely a long and complex one. In putting together this volume, however, we have been motivated less by histories of separation and isolation than by a commitment to a kind of deep solidarity modeled by Anzaldúa, a sense of remaining incomplete so long as the liberationist agenda that includes Chicanas and Latinas does not also include Jotos, and vice versa. It is the unambiguous assertion of interdependence, coupled with the direct naming of Jotos as nuestros hermanos, our brothers, that informs the creation of the volume. Not forgetting gay Latino men, as Anzaldúa implores, is one way of framing the motivation behind the present volume. However, we are also keenly aware of the potential imprecision of the phrase and its resonance as patronizing benevolence in its self-assured commitment to what has been left behind. Ultimately, we may even inaccurately suggest that gay Latinos, more than Latina lesbians, have been abandoned. Implying that gay Latinos are worse off than Latina lesbians is not only debatable, but as some of our contributors argue, politically and descriptively suspect, inasmuch as such ranking of oppressions potentially undermines profound moments of cross-mentorship and collaboration, or mistakenly suggests that gay Latinos have been less active or more complacent than Latina lesbians. Questions as deceptively simple as, where is the gay male version of This Bridge Called My Back? Or what are gay men doing, what were gay men doing when Latina lesbians were fighting the publishing establishment, resonate differently after engaging the work of our contributions to the volume. In fact, questions that assume gay male apathy or deep rifts and irrevocable antipathies between gay men and lesbians fail to acknowledge the social movements that make certain forms of politics and documentation possible, not to mention the multiple ways that feminist volumes like This Bridge have spoken to gay men and represented our interests, broadly speaking. As the editors of this volume, we claim a lesbian feminist legacy of writing as our own, in the sense that many gay Latino men have not only found political company in this legacy, but have found it to be life-sustaining. As students, activists, and teachers, we have taken care of those books and their insights, sharing them with our family and friends, quoting them and teaching them, and learning to live their lessons, strategies, mistakes. Thus, a more appropriate frame for the kind of work this volume intends to accomplish is one that, drawing on the work of Caribbean feminist M. Jackie Alexander, advocates less in support of not forgetting gay Latinos and more in support of actively remembering. As Alexander notes, remembering does not entail obsessing over the past so much as, quote, daring to recognize each other again and again in a context that seems bent on making strangers of us all. Alexander invokes remembering within the context of the coalitional politics of women of color, but the concept can be useful for other anti-racist feminist contexts. Gay Latino Studies sees itself as part of that tradition. Remembering asks us to bring together a coalitional body that has been dismembered by a history of ideological violence. In actively resisting that history of violence, we are able not only to remember a history of conflict and coalition, but also to remember possibilities for collaboration in the present. Remembering gay Latinos, then, is not an act of nostalgic recovery. Instead, it is a practice of piecing together and repopulating that which some would argue has never been gay Latino studies, but which our presence now in this volume might work to confirm. We invoke gay Latino studies as an act of remembering, as a gesture toward what has been and might still be possible, even if it is only provisionally